Well, when we don't move our bodies, our thoughts become louder, and so it's easier to start listening to those thoughts. The volume is turned up, and the mind gets busier and louder, and there's less space to process those thoughts. They have nowhere to sort of find an outlet. And so when we move our body, that integration of the mind and body, we can release that, we can integrate that, we can digest thoughts into body wisdom, and which gives us a whole different intelligence, the different intelligence of ourselves and of our gut and of our heart that we forget to access when we're busy in the mind. I think people moved maybe a little more, not everyone, but we didn't have, with pandemic, it's harder maybe to go to a class or be physical with another body, and that whole kinesthetic connection has been missed for a lot of people, and that human interaction has been really challenging for some people, especially people that might live alone, because we relate to each other through our skin and through our breath. And so when we're not in a physical closeness, that can have an effect on us as well. So working with people through the screen and through audio, mainly through audio, and supporting people out in nature through the virtual has been really interesting, because they may not have been able to get that from another person, but they're able to feel similar physical connection through being in nature, through lying on the earth or being near the river. So the challenge of having the screen or going out with headphones has meant that people have built new relationships with the nature that's around them wherever they are. That's been fascinating. I didn't expect that at all, and I
would like, just to put more energy here for people to understand, because like, for example, I arrived to you, I've been on the quarantine, I've been on the pandemic, I'm in survival mode, etc. I arrived to Rivka. What do you recommend to me? What do you suggest for me to do? What do we do? What does this look like? Take me in a visual journey of like, how do you know I need it? And where will you take me with your practices of somatic dance, of, all of these?
Mm. Can you see outside anywhere where you are now? Do you have a window in your space, wherever you are, to see maybe there's a piece of garden, and if not, a pot plant? Any way you can bring that green in, to then take a moment to breathe together. The simple practice of breathing is what's so needed right now. There's a lot of high anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of just unknown in people's bodies that affects breath. And the whole pandemic is around lungs and breath and taste and smell. So I would invite you, or whoever is interested, to be with a plant, with a living being, breathing plant, and to breathe together. And through a guided practice of coming into your breath and into your belly and into slowing down, we come into that place of presence, which is what's so needed, right?
Yes, and tell people why. Why is it so needed to go? I mean, you and I understand it, right? And for you and I, it's we speak about slowing down, but like because I'm such a promoter of like your work of dance, connect, embody. But what will it give them? Like, what are the benefits of this? I love how she connects with her body, like that.
I do. I go in and I ask my body to I'm listening to that answer through my skin, through my cells.
Yes. I love what you just said.
Yeah.
I love what you just said.
Stillness.
Listening to my body and my skin.
Mm. So I went out to the bush last weekend because I was just desperate for it. I was so busy with stuff. I don't know what it's like over there, but everyone's very back to busy again, and there's lots to do, and
Yes.
not a lot of space. And I was feeling this build up of, I call it the white noise in my head, sort of overwhelm. And I know when that happens, I need to go out to the country. And so I took myself out, and I was going to read and write, and I had all these things to do. And I lay the blanket on the ground, and I just needed to lay on the earth and be held by the earth. That was all I did. And I lay there, and I noticed that I slowed down, that I relaxed my muscles, that I was able to relax my body, and that I was able to rest. And in that simple practice of resting, the peace that can come through, the peace that I was looking for, but couldn't access other ways through the busy, is right there just through lying on the ground. And then from that comes rejuvenation. So the practice of presence and rest and allowing to be held by the earth creates this place of rejuvenation, but also this space for spirit to come in, for guidance, for newness, and for this fresh beginning each time, like every breath is. But from that place, I got up with new energy, new insight. My work after that was so much more efficient. There's so many benefits to presence and resting, that it's not just about calming us down, but that brings us into more alignment with who we are and what we're meant to be doing in each moment. So we're not sort of in the race trying to find that, or catching up, or turning in circles, if you know what I mean. It's like, everything becomes clear, and time changes, and there's just a lot more clarity and efficiency and alignment with not necessarily, when I say like our role on earth, it's not like necessarily our job or our social role, but our role of how we fit into greater humanity.
Right.
And when we find that, there's so much more meaning in that for us. So many people are looking for their meaning, their purpose, their mission,
Yes.
And it's right there. It's just right there in the stillness.
I love that. But so what like when people are not embodied, when people are not treating their their trauma, and they are, how does that person live? How does their nervous system looks like?
Looking at the lines on the screen, thinking about their internal system and their, I spent a lot of time in my fight, flight and freeze. I spent a lot of time in that sort of on alert survival in my life, earlier in my life, without realizing that I was in survival mode from past trauma, that I hadn't allowed my body to find some calmness in that. So my nervous system was on alert for a long time, years and years. And when I was finally able, through somatic practice, to let my body know it was safe, and through breath release some of that fear, and through working with my fascia in the skin to allow that that memory, that bodied memory out of trauma. We've all had different sorts of trauma. Like, trauma is not necessarily what happened. The experience, trauma is our body's response. Trauma is the patterns that we have created in that moment. So they're held in the body. I believe that they're just there, and until we move our body, they don't have a chance to. There's no release. There's no way out. So
I love that. So when we move our body, we allow the release what is blocked and stagnated. I've been working also on trauma and shadow work and everything, and I do see that when the body moves, the past, gains a new like perspective. You begin to get a golden nugget from what you thought it was a darkness. You begin to gain a new perspective. You begin to dance with life instead of dying with life. I really believe that we came here to dance with life, because death is already promised. So what do I do in the meantime is to live my life, to do the dance of life, to actually, do whatever I can to, if something happened, how can I learn from it, let it go, and do it differently next time. So tell me about your workshops and your trainings where people can why I love your trainings and everything is because people don't have to really suffer to let go of the trauma. They can dance the trauma away.
Yeah, so
Think
true.
about that. Instead of being miserable, like eating 10,000 like gallons of ice cream, I'm just thinking of my past self, and not moving and being stuck in like a fetal position that's usually
Yeah.
sometimes what trauma does. I can go and dance and let it all go out of my system through that. So tell me, how do you offer these? Like your coaching, your programs, your trainings, tell us about it.
Yeah, and in so many different ways. Like moving, like you said, it can be fun, it can be wild, it can be that the dance spaces that I held and that I've been in are some of the only places where you can really be free to express. You can roar and you can scream and you can laugh and you can things that you can't necessarily do out there in the world because people think you're a little odd. So in these spaces, that expression there's room for total expression. So I do everything from just a weekly class. I taught last night in my local area where people come just as their weekly practice. And then I run workshops outdoors. So there's the face-to-face that's happening. I do a lot of events with musicians and sound healers and combining the frequency of music with movement. And the online work that I do, similarly, programs and coaching one-to-one. So supporting people in their really specific personal transformation of what they need in their bodies at that whatever particular time they're going through, and more programming in partnership, with nature as my ally. So dancing with, I run a program out in the Central Desert in Northern Territory, where we're really dancing with the elements, moving outdoors with the elements, and the embodied elements within us as well.
Wow. I feel your voice, and I think I think if we could have done a podcast like on video, and instead of talking, you'll be like,
Yeah.
let's dance, Yvonne. Because I've seen you. I want people to know I've seen you. I feel your presence each time that we are, in weekly calls. We have we're members of the same, like a community, right? The Convergence family. And we're there. Your presence is so strong. You are so rooted, feeling just right now in the podcast where you are even pausing to think, not to think what I'm asking, but to feel it and connect with a piece of nature. I'm, in my office, I only have some roses. I'm about to bring more plants. I'm a believer on the animal, on the plant kingdom. I surround myself with trees. One of my goals in the future, when I'm a really young old lady, I want to have, live in a mountain, have a tea house with meditation, and welcome all my friends to drink tea and speak about spirituality and help them slow down the nervous system and everything. But what you are just saying, the little tips that you are giving people, I'm highlighting because, you are so rooted that it may be missed by many because you are coming from that soil, earthly, embodied presence. I want everyone to just pay attention how she's so connected that she doesn't disregard earth, Pachamama, Gaia, not for one single moment. She checks in with her in herself. And from there, she decides and moves. And then added to that, she likes to move and uses the soil and just incredible. So, for example, if someone right now that there's so much like the social distance and so many Zooms, Rivka, it's sometimes I do feel the exhaustion in my physical body of being so much on the computers, and I really have to go just lay down in the grass and stay there for an hour. How can people work with you in distance? Do you work with with people online?
Yes. So in that sort of one-to-one practice, it would be through audio, they have their phone or whatever in the headphones. They don't need to see me or see the screen, but they have